Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Rec Poker Podcast. For those of you expecting to see Jim Reed today, you will know that I am not Jim Reed. I'm certainly filling in. Jim apparently had to take up, if you've been following us along, to know that he has to clean out John Somsky's gutters, and John held him to that today. So he's taking care of that today, and in order to punish everybody, he pointed to the person that everybody would least like to do this particular podcast. Everybody pointed at me, and so Jim chose me. So you're stuck with me today. But hopefully we can get through and have some good discussions today. We are very, very fortunate to have Heather Gearan and Paul Gearan, who are going to talk with us about their redesigned Poker Pilgrims website. But first, I want to talk a little bit about our sponsor. We are very fortunate to have the Running Aces Racetrack and Casino, which sponsors us each and every week and allows us to put on this information for you. We're largely, as Jim always says, a volunteer organization, but there are bills to pay in the background, and Running Aces Racetrack and Casino, it helps us to do that. As a personal plug, I've been there one time in Minnesota when I was out there, and it was one of the best places I have to play and that I've ever played. It helps that I won some money there, but it's also lovely people and a lovely place to be. We also have to always mention our premium members who help us to pay the bills as well. These are individuals who have paid a small amount per month, $15 per month, in order to help support what we're doing. But it gives them access to a great deal of information, a great deal of materials, access to videos from other sites as well. And it's just a great deal. It's actually how I got involved with the RECing Crew, was first being a premium member throughout. We also have the community members who help us to provide our nightly home game, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and they support us as well. Further, we also have the RECing Crew, which are the backbone of everything that we do here at Rec Poker, you're going to hear a few of them right now.
Well, I'm Chris Jones. You can find me 5B5 on Twitter or 5x5 in the Poker Stars home game.
And I'm John Somsky. No, hey, watch out! Oh, Jim just fell off the ladder. And I'm known as Poker Geek MN everywhere.
And I'm Keith Brandt, and that's Monkey System everywhere.
I'm Kim Kilroy. I'm Fergie56 in the home game. PatVet_33 on Twitter.
And I'm Rob Washington, and I'm Rabman50 just about everywhere.
Okay, so to get started with, I'd like to introduce Heather Gearan and her husband, Paul Gearan. They're going to probably be best able to speak a little bit about their origin stories in poker. That is one of Jim's favorite things to talk about. And I thought I'd just let them explain that to you in terms of who they are, what brought them to poker in the first place, and where they went with it.
Great. Well, welcome everybody. Thank you for having us tonight. Appreciate it. Yeah, ours is probably the kind of mundane post moneymaker era. Got into poker, watching it after that, and then started playing. Dropped into Foxwoods in Connecticut and a few other of the Mohegan Sun, the places in New England, and then actually started playing our kind of local pub poker. Weekly events around our area, and played that for months and years of kind of casual doing that, and then going to the casinos once in a while and playing there. But really kind of learned the game with people who became friends with our local area, just kind of going once or twice a week to a kind of local establishment, having some fun. So, and then we've progressively kind of dropped that at some point of our life, decided that that randomness was just not tolerable anymore, of the 8-minute blind levels and wild play of pub poker, and started playing a lot of more tournaments in New England and some cash, and been doing that for, I don't know, Heather, right, last 14, 15 years now.
Yeah, probably about. And then in 2017 was when we decided to start a blog, because we really loved poker and we really loved traveling. And so we wanted to kind of share our things that we've learned and rooms that we visited with other folks who, like us, might be interested in traveling different places in the country to play poker.
Well, that's actually interesting because as I was kind of trying to figure out, who you were in the field preparing for this interview, I realized actually you helped me out when I first started playing poker very directly, in that I'm in the New England area, and about 2018, I was looking for a poker place to play in New Hampshire for one of my daughter's AAU tournaments, and I came upon this particular travel site, and it was yours. So I owe you
Great.
thanks for saying, thank you for helping me, find a great place to play. Can you tell us a little bit about the website and what your hopes were for it?
Sure, absolutely. We originally, back in 2017, were thinking we were going to take a year once our youngest kids were in college and travel around the country just playing poker everywhere we could. And then the pandemic happened and life happened and RVs are incredibly expensive now. And so we may still do that at some point. But right now what we're doing is we take a couple of months a year and we'll go to a destination. We've been to Vegas for a month during the World Series, and we went to Maryland for a month, and we've been to different parts of Florida a couple of times. And just play as much poker. We get an Airbnb and live there for a month and play as much poker as we can, and review the rooms and learn the tournaments and the players, and really try to bring all that information together for people. Recently, we've been able to pull together information on most of the cash play in the country, all the rooms that are covered by Bravo or Poker Atlas. If you go to, say, Poker Atlas, you can see how many cash tables are live right now. But if you want to know how many cash tables are going to be live on an average Saturday night in San Diego, they can't tell you that. But our website has that now. And our website also, just as of the last couple of months, has all the regular tournaments playing in the country that are covered by either their own sites or the aggregator sites. So if you're going to Tampa and you're going to be there on a Saturday night, you can pull up our table and see, okay, what are the blind levels? What are the S points? How many people on average play at TGT, Hard Rock, Derby Lane? So you can make an informed choice of which tournament you want to buy into. So, and we also still have the blog. We have a map of all the poker rooms in the country. But we really have been trying to fill out the kind of data aspect of helping people figure out where they want to play poker.
So I think we evolved this from what is a blog into a website that's meant to be now a resource for recreational poker players. That really, if you're trying to decide where to play, how to play, we want to give you information about what those areas are like, what the different room options are in those areas. If we visited them, we have an extensive review of kind of what not only the poker experience is like, but the general facility or area is like, and get some ideas about what you may want to do and how that fits into your kind of life and travels. And we really want it to be more of a resource for people now than just our musings about our incredibly exciting travels and sparkling personalities. Although that's obviously riveting to most people, as you might expect. We want it to be a bigger thing than that. So, and the travels Heather talks about, that is really travel. We jumped in a car from Boston, Massachusetts, and drove to Vegas for the World Series, stopping at, various things to do, non-poker things too, but also stopping at the Jack in Cleveland, and then, all along the way, picking off the, solo rooms out in Nebraska and things like that. So
Blackhawk, Colorado, where there were 6 rooms on a single block.
Which I had a panic attack trying to drive up the mountains of Blackhawk, in the snow, thought that was going to be our last venture, trying to get in and out of Blackhawk. If anybody's been there, it's worth going. It's pretty fascinating, but definitely not for the faint of heart to drive up into the mountains of Colorado. So, but worth it. But so, yeah, we're really trying to, I think, develop a resource so people can go there and kind of help decide, like yourself, Joe, when you go into New Hampshire, we want people to go and say, okay, I want the biggest cash action. I want to play, I want to play PLO. I want to cash. Where would you go? If you're in New England, where would you go? And we could tell you, well, you got Foxwoods and you got maybe, Chasers in New Hampshire. And those are your
Boston
options.
billiards, yeah.
Billiards in New Hampshire. But if you ideally, we're going to try to fill out this entire experiential map, not only with data but our own experience, so that pretty much you could go to all the kind of major hotspots in the country and have some data to really decide where do you want to play.
So I did want to ask you about the data, because you're listed as being data analysts or data scientists as well. And, gathering and saying, well, this is a room that has, places to play and it's got pretty walls is one thing. But, I've heard you say multiple times just in the last 5 minutes that you're collecting averages of some sort in terms of number of rooms per night. Without getting into the, any trade secrets for yourself, how are you gathering that data and how do you pull it all together to analyze it effectively to give people an idea really of what's going on in those rooms?
I think we do the unglamorous, tedious work of for a couple weeks at a time saying, okay, we're going to look at the entire West Coast at 8 p.m. on Tuesday night and then Wednesday night, and we're going to go to Bravo, we're going to Poker Atlas, we're going to go to the websites of particular rooms that carry their own numbers there, because there's still a few of those out there, and we are going to record for a couple weeks in a row to get a decent mean average there of who's playing. Same thing, tournaments are Heather still curses me out on a regular basis when, after we got through all the cash numbers, I said, we need tournament numbers now. We need tournament numbers. That's a kind of living hell that I wish upon nobody, because as you probably all know, as soon as you get a good handle on what rooms are offering, what tournaments, and what they change the tournament structures, they change the tournaments. And so we spent months and months running this down, and I think we did like 1,200 tournaments in the country of every poker room that was tracked. That's over 6 tables. That's more than 5 tables, actually. So, it really was a lot of grunt work. We're trying to figure out more efficient ways to do it as we move forward. But basically, it was unglamorous grunt work of collecting numbers, drawing averages, and
Calculating S points for all of the
tournaments, calculating structure sheet, taking every structure sheet that we could get our hands on and calculating S points. So ultimately, we want to kind of evolve this into understanding what value you're getting for your money. Obviously, we don't the trade secret. We don't want to reveal too much here, but most recreational poker players are not real profitable. Like sad but true. Oh yeah, I know. I hate to break everybody's bubble, but most of us are not making millions off of this. So that means you're kind of buying money, and how you thoughtfully choose that in terms of what's the rake in those tournaments, what do the fields look like? So what's the potential payoff? And are kind of critical, we think, to recreational poker players, kind of figure out we look at it as a recreation. That is money. If I was a golfer and I played golf, I'd be spending several $100s a month on golf. I like to play poker, so like most of us, we don't have unlimited budgets. So I think there's some thoughtfulness about being a recreational poker player in judging the value of that tournament. So understanding that for your $100 or $150, you're getting several hours of good play. You can actually play real poker. You're going to get a field of 120 people, so the payout, the top prize is $4,500. All those things we think should go into the mix of most poker players deciding what they're going to do tournament wise, and certainly cash too. Being able to know you're going to go to get enough tables that you can do some table switching or kind of try to organize your strategy so that you don't end up on the one table one room has every night without the ability to move off of some regs that are just killing you. So
I have a quick question for you, Paul. We're mostly a tournament site here at RecPoker, mostly. And you mentioned S points, and I'm just wondering if you can explain to our listeners what S points are,
sure,
what they represent, and how they're calculated.
Yeah, absolutely. Without going through the whole algebra, it's an algebraic equation that takes in the way it goes, the degree that there jumps in each of the levels of the tournament. They take levels 6, 10, 14, and 18. So they look at those 3 levels, and those go into exactly how quickly those go up, gets into the calculation. And then there's a kind of runoff time in terms of the amount of time it takes to get to blind levels that equate to your starting stack. So if your starting stack is 30,000 and you get to the blind levels, which are 6 and 12 with a 12,000 big blind ante, that's your break even point. So, and if that's 12 levels in at 30-minute blinds, that's 360 minutes. So the more minutes you can get till you reach that break even point gives you a sense of how much play there is, as well as the arc of the tournament. So the blind off minutes is one piece of it, and then the kind of degree to which it goes up. Because if suddenly we play in tournaments like this, where we're like, I'm sure you all do, where you get great play for 2 or 3 hours, it's great, you're able to play real poker, and then suddenly it goes 1-2, 2-4, 4-8, the double in the blind levels, and suddenly you're playing all in poker, suddenly within half an hour after, hour 3. And other tournaments go very, very gradual. So the S points gives you a number that goes from basically 2 or 3 to 100 and something. Most daily tournaments go between about 20 and 40. That's a typical. Anything above 40 is generally pretty good. Anything below like 20, 25 is pretty bad. So you get one number that kind of sums up, is this a good tournament in terms of structure where you can get quality play? So the bigger the number, the better quality.
So you would say over 40 is a decent structure from what you're saying?
40 is good. I mean, that's the simple answer, because then it's like, well, how much did you buy in for? So if you bought in for, $80 and you got a 32, that's really good. If you bought in for, 250 and it's a 40, it's marginal. So some of it's a little bit about the buy-in, but yeah, in terms of if you ignore the buy-in amount and you kind of say, I'd say, over 40, you got set a pretty good play. Over 50, you got real good play in S points. You get an under 20, you're starting to play, pretty fast-paced tournaments where you're not going to have a lot of strong play.
So it sounds to me like you're kind of trying to maximize not a player's time necessarily, but to provide an idea for the recreational player about how much value that they're getting for the tournament time that they are, rather than just in terms of how much money you can make based on buy-ons and things like that. Is that fair?
Yes.
And that's one of the things we're working on too, is to try. Well, Heather keeps pressing me because I'm the one that's we're data analysts, so now I'm trying to come up with a way to really kind of summarize value for people, to say really for this buy-in amount, you're getting really excellent value. So
He wants to create the next great tournament metric.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
One number that wraps it all up.
Yeah, and it's really challenging. Yeah, that's probably actually a better way to more complicated way to do it. But we're working on that. But yeah, we do really want to have people's sense of like, I think there's nothing worse than people buying. We're tournament players largely too, so we understand the kind of perils of this. But you go in and you kind of don't know what the structure is, and you go and you lay $150 down, and you're suddenly like, oh my goodness, it's a nice play for a while. Now it's just descended into, it's really important, as you all know, to really understand. And you probably also sense that, so few players actually spend the time to look at any of that and to really kind of think about, is this a good venue for me to play? Is this am I likely to have success here? If I'm the type of player that plays pretty solid, tight, aggressive poker and waits for opportunities, and is this the kind of tournament that's going to give me that kind of ability, or am I going to be
just
really
luck?
pressed up to? Yeah, I'm going to be pressed up against it pretty quickly. So.
It's almost more like less like a financial EV and more like an enjoyment EV kind of comparison.
That's excellent. I'm stealing that right now.
Copyright Kulas.
We may or may not quote you, Joe, but no. I mean, I think that's kind of what our site is. I mean, we kind of view, poker is, meant to be, for most of us, fun and entertainment, unless we get to a level of ability that produces income, your revenue, that really makes it a different thing. But that's not true for 99% of us. We want the site to be something where people can use as a resource to say, is this something that I'm going to have fun with? And not just, the poker itself, but the we've gone to places where we've gotten destroyed, and the poker was not fun, but the environment itself and the place was so enjoyable that didn't matter that much. That the poker was tough, but the venue was excellent, and vice versa. We played in dicey venues where the dealers were excellent and the structure was great, and we don't care that we were getting to the parking lot looking over our shoulder making sure we didn't get killed, but the poker was worth the risk. So we do really kind of look at the whole thing in terms of providing these numbers for people to make kind of thoughtful decisions, and then when we can have some color ourselves with reviews and things like that to really say, we think this is an excellent
So one of the things that we've been doing in terms of the number of guests that we've had recently has had to deal with women in poker and women in tournaments, and obviously there's been quite a lot online about the difficulties for women playing at various venues. And one of the things I actually kind of noticed wasn't there or might be something that you could include, would be something to give women an idea of how friendly the venue is to women in general. On the last Thinking Poker podcast, they had talked about, I think, Maryland Live being much more friendly than some of the other venues. And I was curious if you'd ever considered that, or is it taken into account somewhere in your rankings?
So we haven't, I think, explicitly called that out, but we do, as part of whenever we do a room review, we do a description of kind of the general players in the room and always call out, I definitely have played plenty of tournaments where I'm the only woman in the entire tournament. Mm-hmm. And I'll call that out, or I'll say, no, about 40% of the players were women. Sometimes you'll go into a place and it's all 60 plus old men, so if the kind of mix stands out in a certain way, we mention that when we do a room review. But I also just personally haven't had issues as a woman playing poker. I actually love being the only woman at a table of men. It's just like, I'm also a data analyst and really into sports. So, it's just my personal, I am comfortable in a room full of men. So for me, I think it isn't top of mind, like I think it is for some other women.
We certainly do like to underscore it in the reviews, though, and unfortunately, the most of it ends up there were very few women in the room. So you're right. Maryland Live, a place like that, which we love, was one of our favorite rooms, is excellent in every way. So I do think they're very friendly to women. They're just friendly to players in general. So I think that there is something, I think you're right, that it would be nice to kind of include it and really understand that and state that. Unfortunately, the kind of reality in most of the rooms right now is that just so few women still play regularly. We just wish it was more, and some of the New Hampshire rooms is pretty good, but we have been, you're right, Heather's been the lone woman in way more tournaments than I wish was true.
So how do casino rooms actually receive your rankings, given that, in looking at your rankings, some don't do quite as well as others. And I can imagine that certain rooms might not be all that pleased when you come by, and other rooms are quite happy and maybe provide you gifts. I mean, how do you manage those difficulties and conflicts and so on?
So we
reject the gifts for the most part, unless there's implicit threat, which did happen once. We won't name the room, but we were told we probably should accept the buy-ins. But yeah.
Oh, that's right. That did happen once.
That did happen once. We actually got contacted by a Vegas room not too long ago whose review was not particularly favorable. And they couldn't have been nicer. And they actually asked us, to update some of the tournament info because they had changed some things and whatever.
But they were tournaments, yeah.
Actually, most of the rooms have been very, very nice about it. We try to be even-handed. We seldom, there's very few rooms. I found that there's very few elite rooms and there's very few rooms that have no redeeming factors. We really try to look at the culture of a room and assess that. And we do rate them. We absolutely do. We do rate them for the quality of the personnel, the quality of tournaments, and that kind of comfort of the room and sense of being there. And there've been a few, duds in the world, but most of the time we try to be fair and kind of say, here's what's good about the room, here's what's not strong about the room. And I don't
For the
think
most part, the feedback that we get is when we, post the review on Twitter, someone from the room will say, thanks so much for stopping in, or thanks so much for your review. And we don't really hear much beyond that.
Okay. So I haven't been able to watch closely. I do want to give, if there's anybody who is on the YouTube live who wants to ask any questions, if Chris wants to give those, or if any of the other panelists do want to step in, I can talk forever. So again, you do need to speak up.
Well, I have one kind of follow-up. You mentioned, traveling to a bunch of different areas of the country, traveling across the country between East Coast, West Coast. And, you often hear players talking about, there's a Florida style of poker. There's a Vegas style of poker. There's a, East Coast style of poker, West Coast style of poker, maybe a Midwest style of poker. Have you found that in sort of like in traversing across the country, and like, do you adjust how you play in different regions at all?
Oh yeah, I mean definitely. It's like, go to South Florida and it's like everybody's insane as the whole area's, and everybody drives like a maniac and every place plays poker like a maniac, So yeah, we definitely have seen that. We have definitely seen where, we stop on our way out in the Midwest and it's much tighter, and you definitely adjust your play accordingly. Although I think we find it sometimes more even room to room than regional, like even up where we live, we know the rooms that really attract the players that are much more skilled and intense about the way and focused on the way they play, and then the rooms that are kind of a little more mellow, a little more laid back and fun. I think we found that probably more from area to area, that there are the good time rooms, the people going and having a fun time and kind of being a little bit, a lot of fun trash talk. And then there's the rooms there you go and they're deadly serious and everybody's intense. And I think the variation room to room in regions is more than region to region. I think I found most regions have their fun places, and then they have their, we all think we're pros and we're never going to crack a smile, and I would find it more variation like that than I do region to region. That'd be
Except for South Florida.
Except South Florida, which is insane. But not that that's a bad thing, South Florida people, but we like many rooms down there. We, the Hard Rock down there is a great room. We like a lot of rooms down there, but that's an intense area in a lot of ways.
So you mentioned that even in the same region that you'll get different types of atmospheres based on the room. Do you think that's just because of the people that particularly go to that venue, or is it the venue itself that creates this kind of a really tightness and everybody's real focused, and the other one, everybody's partying and having fun? I mean, is it the venue that's making this happen? I wonder.
I think a little both. I think we have like a room up near us in New Hampshire where I think they've been really kind of they really kept the tournament stuff going alive when it died all over New England during the pandemic and post-pandemic, and they had a certain kind of way of approaching it that I think created some fun and some excitement for people that play tournament poker particularly. So I do think you're right that it's probably a little of both. It probably gets, attracts, some of it's just like, hey, if this place offers low buy-in tournaments, that attracts a certain group of people. If you're putting down $60 to play versus $250, that's a different type of player. So some of it's driven by whether the offerings are, what the players that are willing to put those things down. If you're playing for 60 and you lose 60, you shrug. If you're playing for 500, it's not so much of a shrug when somebody chases a gut shot on you and gets it, and you lose your mind. I think there's some about the structure and the offerings, but I definitely think there are some trend setting with the rooms. Again, come back to, we just played Maryland Live in the fall, and you had mentioned that previously, Joe, and I think that was one of the places where they set a real tone of both kind of, they're a very interesting kind of room because it's both professional but kind of fun too. They kind of did a really good job. The dealers were just excellent. The floors were excellent. There was this fun atmosphere, yet it was really professionally run, which is a rare kind of commodity. So I do
Every
think
single employee at that place was so nice, from the security guard to the floor, to the dealers. It was they really stood out just for how nice everybody was.
crazy.
Keith, I think you've been unmuted for a while.
I have been watching your work, your blog on advanced poker training with
Yeah.
interest for a long time now. I'm a life member.
Great.
And what are your plans for the near future to add to it?
Yeah, well, Keith mentions we have multiple hats. We're talking about our website, but we also work for Advanced Poker Training, doing things for them, which is a training, a simulation, bot-driven ability to train, and a lot of different utilities there. It's great. The people, Steve Blay, who runs that, is one of the nicest people you ever meet, and they've created a great site. So we write for them and do other work for them. Heather works for another site, as you guys probably know. So I'll let her talk a little bit about that. So we've kind of kept some fire, pokers and through the pun pokers in a number of areas.
Yeah, for Robbie, I just I do some editing and help him prepare posts to publish. I actually am the person who prepares the RecPoker post to publish every week. So I'm quite familiar with the podcast.
So yeah, Cardplayer magazine that Heather helped Robbie out with. But yeah, so I guess it's world domination, Keith, of every poker site in the world as our ultimate, is that we plan to get engaged in every single one of them so nobody can avoid us. But yeah, we've been really fortunate that we've gotten lucky that we've run into some of these people and met them, and getting together with Steve Blay at Advanced Poker Training was just he had an ad out years ago, and we responded to it. We had kind of run our own humor blog a long time ago, and then discovered we can't make money at that and weren't that funny. So that was, so once we discovered that, we started working with Advanced Poker Training, developed our site. We've met Robbie, also one of the nicest people in the poker world. So yeah, we kind of keep doing all that stuff because we enjoy that. On top of our core job, which is pays the bills, we actually kind of enjoy these kind of sidelights. And there's just so many. One of the reasons we got into poker is like this group here. We just so many nice people to meet, so many interesting people to meet. When I first started playing in New Hampshire, I was like, this is like watching this on ESPN. Everybody was a character. Everybody was interesting. I mean, it was like everybody was out of central casting. Everybody had, there were the famous people in the room, and All In Freddie and this guy, and everybody had these personas. And so we just kind of continue to dive into that and really want to enjoy the experience of the people in this game, both people that work at websites and also just the other players. We just really like that aspect of it too.
Just a quick follow-up too. You mentioned world domination. We have a lot of our members, including some of our RECing Crew members, are from Canada areas. And not to give you any more work that you have to do, but have you ever taken a tour of some other rooms around the world? And would you ever is that something that you're kind of thinking that the website can take on? There we go.
One of our all-time favorite poker rooms is Playground outside of Montreal. We went there we went there twice a year before COVID, sometimes. And we used to love the Casino Montreal back when it was a full poker room and ran tournaments and stuff. So far, those are our only two Canada rooms, but we've been to them many times. And yeah, definitely we'd love to play in different parts of the world. Also,
if anybody gets a chance to play with a French card deck, because the Playground plays with the standard deck, but Casino Montreal, when it played with the French deck, which a king was Ra, so it's an R, and queen was D, and jack was V. So you're sitting there playing, trying to figure out, do I have the nuts or do I have absolutely nothing?
Do I have Broadway? I can't tell.
It was hilarious. Everybody's talking in French. We have no idea what's going on, but that was a great place too. So we really want to explore more Canada, and we both do like to travel. And when we kind of get everybody through college, and we both want to get back to Europe and do some traveling over there, and we'd love to stop at some of the famous rooms over there too. So yeah, the world definitely, it expands beyond the United States and even Canada. We even might venture beyond Canada, but yeah, we definitely want to take some Canadian tours at some point, some other rooms.
So I did want to shift gears just a little bit because in my investigations, over the afternoon, I found out that there is something that actually the two of you share with me. You call yourself data scientists or data analysts, right? But that hides the fact that you're both clinical psychologists. And I am also a clinical psychologist. And I'm also married to a clinical psychologist. So my question has to do with a quote that I found online, and I'm just going to read it to make sure. It says, "Can I opt for waterboarding if you'll shut up?" And I'd like you to just kind of comment on what that quote means to you, and more generally, how it's been being people who share the same interests and educational backgrounds and working together as you build the website and go through your poker life journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's there's probably a reason we're no longer active clinical psychologists too, by the way. So, Heather's actually got the full PhD, but yes, we both have a background in that. We kind of use those elements of the training and doctoral training in psychology, does a lot of research methods. So that's kind of where we went eventually. But yeah, working together 24/7 and sharing all these interests. You would think that would be a recipe for eventual burnout, but we actually work remarkably well together in that way. That we always use the phrase Lennon McCartney. That means we're egoless in terms of I don't care who gets credit for this. I don't care who does the good thing. We don't have any kind of egos around what we do with each other. If we rewrite each other's piece, it's almost always better. So when we write stuff and the other one edits it, it usually is improved. And I don't even go back and look at what she did. I trust Heather. So, she, I'm sure, reads what I did. I'm sure she, I don't know if it goes both ways equally. Maybe. I also understand the pecking order. Heather, let's be honest here. Heather runs this website and I behave myself as much as I possibly can and do what she tells me. So
he's much more willing to do the grunt work, looking at the numbers, getting back up at 1 o'clock in the morning because the California tournaments now have enough numbers to check in. He will put himself on the line to get the data collected.
Yeah, I'll do that stuff.
I found it very interesting because I think that when I started playing poker, I always got you're a clinical psychologist and you're going to have this huge edge on everybody. And I don't know that that's necessarily true if you've ever seen my game, but I do think that the data analysis side actually that you learn as a part of your training plays as much a role in terms of giving an understanding of how to play in comparison to what everybody thinks, which is you can read souls the minute people walk through the door. Yeah. Have you ever found that you've had to hide your backgrounds when you've gone to tables for what people's responses are in terms of how you're seen as a psychologist or the training?
Yeah, this is we're not playing. I mean, we have played World Series events. We've cashed in World Series events and done that. So maybe at that level, we kind of started to worry about that kind of stuff. Obviously, 99% of the time when you sit down, if there are players that can use this information well enough, well, more power to them to, do that. So, I think we're all just trying to hang in there. Like yourself, I'm like, I think I should be way better than I am, given my background in training, and ability to do math and to, at one time, read souls or whatever. And it's a challenging game, man. It's just, it definitely keeps you humble in terms of, a few years ago, I was like, oh yeah, I'm going to be good at this. I'm just, we're going to, and then you start to realize how challenging and how the swings in tournament poker, particularly, we are in, let's say, a prolonged drought for a long time right now. And it's like, we were doing very well a couple of years ago and right before COVID and stuff. And then you hit the droughts and, you read about the pros that go into 2-year droughts. So I think we're all kind of just trying to play the game well enough. And yeah, we look for reads and we look, and I spend some time, in the game theory end of things when I think a player is strong enough that he's playing a little bit along those lines, and I'm trying to do the math of what's the likelihood this is a bluff, and you know, we use it a little bit, but I don't know. Heather, do you use it? I don't know. What do you use? We don't understand each other's game. We don't.
Oh, no, we do not. We actually play very different poker games.
Yeah.
Although come up with stunningly similar results. We actually have a
Yeah.
spreadsheet where we keep all of our results, and we, for several years, kind of did a, you know, who came out better at the end of the year competition, and it alternated.
Yeah.
One year was me, and the next year was him, and the next year was me, and but we have very different games.
Yeah, to go back to your kind of question, Joe, about, you know, the elements of working together and whatever. Probably the only shaky moments in poker have not been about the website, not been anything. It's when we get seated at the same table in a poker tournament. And Heather likes watching my game about as much as she likes knives stuck in her feet. It pains her to watch me play. It's just the sidelight one story too. Have any of you played a tag team switch tournament? Have you guys ever played that? It is the most fun thing we have ever done. We played at Planet Hollywood during the World Series several years ago. And for anybody who doesn't know, it's like a triple tag team is you have one stack and you each switch off to play that single stack. In a tag team, you each play their two stacks. And when they yell switch, you have to stop what you're doing and flip seats and play each other's hands. And then, you know, a random amount of minutes pass, they say switch and you switch back. You have to take over your partner's hand mid-hand. So when Paul is in the cutoff, thinking it was clever to raise 4x with 5-8 off, and they yell switch, and your wife comes in and sees what crap you just put her in a position to play. Suddenly, you're hearing about that all weekend long. So it is Kim sounds like she played. It's a lot of fun, but yeah, that's when you learn your games are slightly different when you play a switch tournament.
I actually played it with my girlfriend, who's also a premium member here. And she and I, it was a Lips event that year. I don't know if you played the year it was the Lips event, and she and I actually came second. So it was super, super exciting. Yeah, and fun.
Yeah.
Best type of tag team tournament there is.
Yeah, tag team. That was the most fun I've ever had playing poker, because the one at Planet Hollywood too it started at 1 in the afternoon, but pretty much everybody was already intoxicated and screaming for shots every 2 seconds. And it was I went to one table where I won about 15 hands in a row because literally nobody was paying attention to so tag team switch, a lot of fun. But, yeah, Heather and I have different games. We have knocked each other out of more tournaments than we never play easy on each other. We never collude. We never do that stuff. And it most of the time goes okay.
So I just had one more question. You know, if anybody on the YouTube live has questions, you know, try to get them in quickly so that we can make sure that we ask these people. I don't want to eat up too much of your time. You've already been very generous with us. And obviously, if any of the other RECing Crew members have questions, and please jump in. I guess the question would be, you know, so a lot of people try to travel, try to go different places for, you know, their vacations and things like that. And sometimes one member wants to play, sometimes both members want to play, sometimes some people don't want to spend any time in the casinos. What kind of advice would you give to people in terms of how to manage those options, given your exposure to so many different kinds of poker rooms?
So that's something we actually usually do try to cover, and we have actually a couple of posts specifically about here are some great things to do in Miami or Las Vegas or wherever if you don't play poker. You know, here are the other things going on if you don't want to play. So I think beyond that, we usually, again, in our reviews, we'll mention if there are any, if it's a one-off room somewhere, if there are any real tourist attractions in the area, if there's somewhere good to eat. We have another post that's all about what to do if you're in a tournament with your spouse or a partner and you get knocked out and they're going on for 5 more hours here's how to prepare yourself to make sure you don't go insane waiting for them for 5 hours, especially if you're not going to, just go and play cash.
Right. Yeah, you want to definitely avoid your significant other saying, if you bubble, you're a dead man after I waited for 5 hours. That's never happened in my life. That's never been uttered to me, but it could be. So, it is tricky. It's tricky, when people have different, if you're not playing at all. We actually know several couples where actually the wife is a player and the husband is not, and they travel around and he has to find stuff to do. He's very patient. Sometimes he hangs out and chats with people and stuff. But I do think we view the kind of website as imagining that all of us as recreational poker players have a range of interests, and that poker is part of a travel and experience that should be broad and full. And we like to do we like to go hiking, we like to go to museums, we like to nice not necessarily expensive restaurants, but not finding interesting restaurants. So in most of our kind of thing, we try to say, hey, if you're in Vegas, check out Chef Kenny's because it's this great vegan takeout or this, that. We want people to kind of have a sense of what it's like to play there. Uh-oh, Kim, I don't know.
Kim likes the vegan.
I love Chef Kenny's. It's
Yeah.
my favorite
Chef
place in
Kenny's
Vegas.
we're not vegans
Yeah,
either. We're
it's
not
amazing. I'm not
vegetarian.
vegan either. It's amazing.
It's
It's
amazing.
ridiculously good food.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. I mean, that was one of the things we couldn't wait to write a review to stick like Chef Kenny. We were staying in an Airbnb around the corner, and it was just like we had it like every other night. Insane.
So I do want to be cognizant of the time, and you've been so generous to this point as it is, but was there anything else that you wanted to plug, anything else that you wanted to speak about in terms of your website, about the revision, or anything else that you're doing that would be of interest to our viewership?
No, I think we just welcome people to stop by, contact us, give us feedback, tell us what you want to see. We really want to be a resource for poker players out there. We listen and talk to people and find out kind of what they need, and we're constantly growing the site to include stuff that would be helpful. So no, it's really an evolution. Like all these things, like you all know, you start with a certain idea and you go different places with it. And we're looking to really evolve it in ways that we think, we think the poker community, the poker lifestyle is not all just about degenerate gambling. In fact, most of it hopefully isn't. And we think very truly that the people we run into in poker are some of the more interesting people we've ever met. And the game itself is very interesting. And the experience when you travel and you get to see stuff and play some great places and enjoy that it can be a very fruitful thing. So we're just going to keep evolving this thing and see where it goes. And then, we want to hear from people.
The site is pokerpilgrims.com. I can give my full endorsement. It has helped me, as I said at the beginning, to find a room, and they were spot on in terms of the nature of the room. And I'm always happy when data is being gathered. So kudos to you guys for the work that you're doing. We have some other things. You're more than welcome to stay and listen as we talk about the winnings in our community game, as well as our food bank giveaway that we're going to do. If you have other things that you need to do, like writing down certain statistics for cash rooms in Dubuque, then certainly feel free to get to work, right, Paul? Apparently you have to do that. Well, Heather will just
I have to go jump on and find out what's happening at Club 52 in Melbourne, Florida now. So.
I have a quick question now for
absolutely.
Heather and Paul. If you have any pull at any poker room, can you get some more tag team switch tournaments in the mix?
Yeah. Maryland Live has a monthly one now.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah,
I might have to take a trip there.
we literally say those kind of things. There's two games we want to push. It's tag team switches and Crazy Pineapple. Both are just insanely fun. And, so every time we get the ear of any manager, we say that we try to pop it in. We can barely, half the rooms is tough enough to get good tournaments anymore. But yeah, absolutely. Anybody drop in the ear of any floor manager that will at least do a monthly or something. That's fun.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah,
thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Great talking to you.
Take care.
Good luck, everyone. Take care.
So moving on into some of the things that Jim does. If I forget anything, just somebody yell at me and say, you forgot that. I think the first thing that we want to do is give John the opportunity to talk about the home game, the daily home game. I'm going to actually keep my mouth shut and see if we can get through one without interrupting him, so that there can be something that Jim could never do with the podcast going forward.
Well, we can start with the Mixed Game Championship Series. For Tigball, Danny Wood won the Mixed Game Championship Series. That's 2 in a row that he won. That brings him up into second place, while Gopher Boy TJM Taylor has the lead in that particular series. Then for the Daily Series Tournament of Champions, Larson's opening, George Borden won his very first TOC and the coveted silver pin. Frogman Rick won his first nightly series of the year. Aces 54-32-0 or 5-4-3-2-0. Kathy Chang got her second nightly victory for the year. Rabman 50, Rob Washam, got his first nightly victory for the year. Rozzy Q, Roz Quarto, got her first nightly victory for the year. And Lancer got his second nightly victory for the year. B-Chip, Charles Allen, won the Daily Mixed event for his third time this year. Keck Geek got his third international victory. That's Keck Geek Senior for those keeping track. And Killy 19341, Rich Deakins, got his second international victory for the year. And then Michael Babker, won the LPP event, so he can contact Jim at rec.poker for his free month at Learn Pro Poker.
So is that the first time we've gotten through it without interruption?
Yeah, other than me stumbling all over every other word.
But we didn't get through it without him messing up a name, and that's always my favorite part.
Yeah, I wonder if I rely on those interruptions to read ahead to reduce the number. It seemed like I was worse than usual tonight.
So you're
Maybe I
blaming
just
me.
didn't have enough.
You're blaming me for stumbling across the words.
Well, I can't take credit for it.
Makes sense.
All right, I'll put that on my shoulders with everything else that I messed up, John. Well, fantastic to all the winners. Obviously, I believe Jim's line is it doesn't cost anything to play in our daily home game. You can be part of a community member. Email and smile, right? The two things that are required and they're mandatory in order to sign up. And if you're looking for a way to just kind of dip your toes into poker and get some good volume without actually having to invest a lot of money, it's a good place to start and learn how to play poker, play against some people that are playing harder than you'll see, for instance, on PokerStars non-cash games, because people actually play to win on these games, and it's going to be tougher than the games that you're used to if you're not used to playing tough games. Chris, did you want to talk about the upcoming deep dive for this month?
I certainly can. I mean, in June, we're looking at player reads, kind of how we build an idea of taking an exploit and what kinds of factors go into making that kind of decision. We had I'm really excited for this one to come out. We had a really nice conversation with a bunch of RECing Crew members. So tune in for that, because I think it's an important topic that we talk a lot about theory. We talk a lot about, game theory optimal, but in the end, we are really having to use that information and make a better decision at the table based on the factors surrounding us. And so having a sense of how you make those decisions is a really valuable skill.
This Thursday, just to plug my own little portion of this website, I'll be doing my second PsyOps presentation, and we're hoping to talk about a lot of biases this week, particularly biases that are going to impact your studying by changing how you view the outcomes from hands that you have. I'm not going to give away any of the biases, names, and things like that, but certainly tune in and bring any questions that you have about psychology at the table. As I said earlier in the presentation, I'm a clinical psychologist. I've studied cognitive biases as a part of my work for pretty much my entire career, and I might be able to shed some light on some things that you have been stumbling on in your poker game. Rob, have you been able to pick out which book you're going to do? I saw that you had the Twitter poll.
The Twitter poll is going. I think we're down to the final 4, and I'll be posting that poll out to see what we're going to do. But we still have one more session of the Poker Brain coming up in 2 days. So anybody that's watching this live can join us on Wednesday at 6:30 for the last session of the Poker Brain. And then hopefully next week about this time, we'll have a idea of which book we're going to be starting the first Wednesday of June.
Keith, did you have something that you wanted to plug coming up?
Well, we just had the Monkeys off-table tools session, and in June I'm gonna cover the same thing. I don't know how I can do live reads in that session, so maybe we'll just do an advanced poker training, crush the bots tonight.
For those of you that haven't actually been and visited Keith's sites or Keith's presentation or Monkey System, it's fantastic. I mean, the opportunity to sit and talk about hands using a lot of times use the advanced poker training site to kind of go through different spots really helps to kind of formulate how people might respond, and I absolutely encourage people to check it out. I do want to say before we last moment for Food Bank. Oh, I'm sorry, Keith. We good? Okay. I did want to just last call for Food Bank to type that in before we do the run. But I've been here probably about a year and a half in terms of being on the site, and I've if you know anything about me, I have lots of interest in a lot of different poker training sites, and this is really one that I felt was very strong, particularly for the recreational poker, to get an idea of how to play the game and how to interact with people who are going to understand the amount of time that you have to play, but also that you want to become a much better. So I really heartily encourage people to take advantage of these opportunities. Come join us. Sit in on a conference, watch the videos. Everybody here is very nice, except for me. I'm the mean one, but they make me be nice for that once a month. But everybody is helpful and everybody wants you to improve and get better. And so take advantage of those opportunities. So unless anybody else has anything else they want to plug or any other things that we should do, I think it's time to.
I would say that I'm glad someone else can be the mean one.
Oh,
I was always the mean one.
Well, you know me, Kim. I'm very competitive on everything, and so therefore.
And I would say we don't make you be nice. We just try our best to have you be not mean.
Okay, so it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
That's what I see.
Yep.
Do you want to read the order just so there's no controversies, like the great Phil controversy of 2021 or whatever that was?
That would be fine. So I have Eric Anderson, Luke O, Mary McCune, CM Magic 62, and Evil Roy Slade.
That is what I see as well. All right, here we go. I'm rolling the box car. If we get a 6, we're re-rolling. It's a 5. That's Evil Roy. Man, Evil Roy just wins. He's just like he's man.
He supplements his income by selling the prizes that he wins. He must. I mean, otherwise he's just got this pile of prizes next to him that just never goes down. Yeah. And it's kind of like a Scrooge McDuck sitting on top of his big pile and sliding up to the bottom.
I thought you could only choose either luck or talent, not both. But he seems to have a little bit of both there.
Mm-hmm. I was forced to choose between good looks and brains, and I got neither. So how did that happen? I mean,
they all went to Evil Roy. It's just all funneled that way.
Well, this has been a lot of fun for me. I hope people have enjoyed the time that we've spent. Luckily for you, Jim should be back next week, and you'll have a more reasonable, rational host to do this podcast. But thank you for giving me the mic for the evening, and I hope everybody has a great next week.
Yeah. And thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Nice job, Joe.